Michel de Montaigne, one of the greatest thinkers of the Renaissance, dedicated his life to understanding the human soul. In his famous essays, he invites us to look within ourselves, but also at those around us. Montaigne knew that the quality of our relationships largely determines the quality of our lives. That is why he wisely warned us, some people do not deserve a place in your life because they not only hinder your growth, but also contaminate your inner peace. In this video, we will present 8 profiles of dangerous people according to Montaigne's teachings. You may live with some of them without realizing it. You may even be unintentionally acting like one yourself. But by recognizing these patterns, you can protect yourself and, above all, choose better who you share your journey with. Be prepared. This content may open your eyes in a profound and perhaps painful way, but it is absolutely necessary. Number 1, the tireless chatterbox. Michel de Montaigne, one of the first thinkers to write intimately about himself, had a deep appreciation for silence and introspection. For him, excessive words were more than a nuisance, they were an obstacle to wisdom. The tireless chatterbox, the one who talks non-stop and rarely listens, represents a type of person to be avoided, not because they are malicious, but because they steal from you what is most precious: attention, clarity, and time to think. Montaigne believed that it is in silence that thought matures, that the soul is heard, and that true wisdom is revealed. The chatterbox lives on the surface, stuck to quick opinions, empty jokes, and pointless comments. They fill the room with noise, stifle introspection, and prevent deeper ideas from emerging. These people often speak on impulse, not with intention, and end up distancing us from ourselves. Worse still, many use chatter as an escape. They avoid silence because they are afraid of what they will find there. Avoiding this type of company is not arrogance, it is self-care. When you surround yourself with people who talk too much and listen too little, you end up internalizing the same noise. Montaigne reminds us that true dialogue requires pause, listening, and space to reflect, and that sometimes the presence of someone silent is infinitely more nourishing than 1,000 words thrown to the wind. Learn to value silence. It is the cradle of true lucidity. Number 2, the false sage. Michel de Montaigne did not trust those who spoke beautifully but lived poorly. For him, wisdom was not a display of words but a way of life. The false wise man is one who fills his mouth with catchphrases, philosophical quotes, and profound advice, but who, deep down, does not apply any of what he says. He likes to impress, but not to transform. He speaks of humility with arrogance, of simplicity with ostentation, of virtue with vanity. Montaigne said that these individuals are more dangerous than the openly ignorant because they deceive with the appearance of truth. They hide behind intellectual masks and create the illusion of depth when in fact they live a lie. The problem is that by surrounding yourself with this type of person, you run the risk of confusing knowledge with wisdom and oratory with character. The false wise man does not inspire real action. He only seduces with empty speeches. Montaigne believed that a life well lived is the greatest sign of intelligence. If someone talks about controlling anger but explodes over anything, or preaches detachment while being a slave to the ego, that person is teaching the opposite of what they practice. And that is not just inconsistency, it is a betrayal of the truth itself. The false sage distances us from authenticity and brings us closer to hypocrisy disguised as virtue. Avoiding them is an act of spiritual protection. Remember, it is better to live with someone who knows little but lives honestly than with someone who knows a lot and uses that knowledge as a stage. Number 3, the self-serving friend. For Michel de Montaigne, friendship was something sacred, a connection between souls that required no explanation or advantage. He said that true friendship is rare, and that any relationship driven by self-interest should be viewed with suspicion. The self-serving friend is the one who comes around when everything is going well, when you have something to offer, status, favors, contacts, money, influence. But as soon as you are no longer useful, they disappear without ceremony. This type of person does not care about who you are, only what they can get from you. It is a presence disguised as affection, but guided by calculation. Montaigne saw this type of friendship as dangerous because it feigns loyalty, manipulates with kindness, and creates a false sense of security. You open up, trust, give parts of yourself, and when you need it most, you realize you were alone. The whole time. The self-serving friend is an emotional negotiator. They measure their actions based on the return they expect to get. And worse, when they realize you are vulnerable, they can use that against you, exploiting your weakness. Montaigne teaches us that we should only cultivate friendships that would exist even in times of scarcity. Friendships that withstand time, distance, and even flaws. A true friend rejoices in your joy and suffers with your pain. The self-serving friend, on the other hand, is jealous of your victories and indifferent to your failures. Recognizing this difference is one of the greatest acts of emotional wisdom, and distancing yourself from false friends is an essential step in preserving your peace. Number 4. The bitter critic. Michel de Montaigne believed that words can be bridges or blades, and the bitter critic always chooses the blade. He is the one who never compliments, only points out flaws, who feeds on the faults of others and turns every conversation into a judgment. For Montaigne, this figure is dangerous because he slowly erodes the self-confidence of others and spreads an energy of discouragement wherever he goes. The bitter critic does not criticize to help, but to diminish. They wear a false cloak of sincerity, as if they are just trying to help, but their words carry poison, not compassion. They live pointing out what is wrong, but never contribute solutions. They take pleasure in showing where others fail because it makes them feel momentarily superior. Montaigne warned us, this type of person has no inner greatness and therefore tries to bring others down to their level. Living with a bitter critic is like living in a constant fog. You begin to doubt your own vision, your own light. Little by little, your self-esteem erodes, your ideas lose strength, your dreams seem silly. And all this is not because you are weak, but because you are being poisoned without realizing it. That is why Montaigne advised, stay away from those who criticize with contempt and get closer to those who correct with respect. Criticism can be a gift when it comes from someone who truly wants you to grow. But when it comes from a bitter heart, it is only a reflection of a soul that has not yet found peace within itself. Number 5. Unbending pride. Michel de Montaigne valued humility as an essential virtue for any human being seeking wisdom. That is why he viewed with great caution the type of person he would call unbendingly proud. Someone who never backs down, never apologizes, never admits a mistake. Such individuals live imprisoned by their certainties, as if changing their minds were a sign of weakness. For Montaigne, the true sign of intelligence lies in knowing how to reconsider, in recognizing that we are all flawed, changeable, incomplete. The proud, on the contrary, prefer to live in an illusion of perfection. They are more concerned with winning an argument than with understanding others. Instead of learning from different opinions, they reject them outright, as if they were threats to their ego. And this rigid, seemingly firm behavior is actually a great emotional weakness, the fear of appearing inferior. Montaigne shows us that this type of person is dangerous because they block dialogue and prevent mutual growth. With them, you find no space to reflect, exchange ideas, or evolve. Everything becomes a dispute. Everything becomes a question of status. And worse, If you try to show a new point of view, they close themselves off even more. That is why it is essential to surround yourself with people who know how to back down, who accept that they are wrong, and who are not afraid to change. Uncompromising pride is not a sign of strength, but of inner imprisonment. Wisdom, as Montaigne said, lies in the lightness of those who know how to learn always, even if it requires letting go of oneself. Number 6. Chronic dramatizer. Michel de Montaigne believed that inner peace was a personal and daily achievement, and that certain companions could sabotage it without us even noticing. One of these companions is the chronic dramatizer, someone who turns everything into a storm, lives in a constant state of emotional exaggeration, and carries a cloud of chaos with them. For Montaigne, this type of person is an invisible thief of energy and balance. They exaggerate problems, increase their own suffering, and turn any interaction into an emotional roller coaster. Small setbacks become tragedies, simple conversations become conflicts, and everything revolves around their feelings. The dramatic person thrives on impact, reaction, and the stage. And the problem is that when you live with them, you find yourself dragged into this constant drama, and without realizing it, you start to live on the same anxious and unstable frequency. Montaigne saw this as a subtle danger, because it is not about malice, but about an imbalance that contaminates. The chronically dramatic demand constant attention, constant validation, and infinite understanding, but rarely offer the same in return. They consume, drain, and are never satisfied. That is why Montaigne advised choosing carefully the voices we allow to inhabit our minds. Surrounding ourselves with calm, serene, and rational people is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. After all, life already has enough challenges on its own. We don't need to drown ourselves in other people's dramas to understand the value of silence, stability, and emotional maturity. Stay close to those who bring you peace and away from those who turn everything into noise. Number 7. The smiling flatterer. Michel de Montaigne was suspicious of those who praised too much. For him, excessive sweetness in speech often hid bitterness in intentions. The smiling flatterer is someone who lives flattering you, extolling your qualities, treating you as if you were flawless. But behind the compliments, there is a game of manipulation. They are not being kind. They are planting dependence. Montaigne saw this type as especially dangerous because they dress as allies but act like opportunists. They praise to please, but with ulterior motives, to gain favors, climb the ladder, gain influence. And the most toxic thing about it is that they sabotage your critical thinking. When you constantly hear that everything you do is perfect, you lose the habit of questioning, improving, and reviewing yourself. The flatterer intoxicates you with vanity and then blackmails you with emotional blackmail. They want you to see them as indispensable, irreplaceable, and if you dare to disagree, they get hurt, walk away, or even start talking badly about you behind your back. Montaigne said, "It is easier to deal with a declared enemy than with a pretended friend." Constant flattery is a form of imprisonment. Those who only praise us do not help us grow. They only feed our blindness. Therefore, value those who correct you with love more than those who praise you without thinking. A true friend does not put you on a pedestal. They walk beside you, pointing the way with truth, not with flattery. Number 8. The professional victim. For Montaigne, virtue lies in taking responsibility for one's own life. He despised the attitude of those who shift the blame for their own failures onto the world, fate, or others. The professional victim is this type of person. Someone who lives in the role of the poor, wronged, defeated by circumstances. Nothing is their fault. Everything is the fault of the system, their family, bad luck, the government, God. And this is dangerous not only because it is false, but because it is contagious. Montaigne knew that living with someone who victimizes themselves weakens our inner strength. Little by little, you start to adopt the same discourse, the same negative view, the same sterile pessimism. The professional victim complains about everything but doesn't lift a finger to change anything. They are experts in lamentation but illiterate in action. And most treacherous of all, they use guilt to manipulate. If you prosper, they feel betrayed. If you try to help them, they refuse, saying it's too late. Montaigne taught that true wisdom requires courage, the courage to take charge of your own life. That's why distancing yourself from those who make self-pity their identity is not selfishness. It's protection. Don't drown in other people's problems while they refuse to swim. Help those who want to get out of the hole, but don't tie yourself to those who dig their own grave every day. You don't have to carry those who don't want to walk. Avoiding these 8 people is not a sign of arrogance, it's a sign of wisdom. Michel de Montaigne understood that human beings are deeply impressionable. The words we hear, the behaviors we tolerate, the bonds we maintain. All of this shapes who we are. That's why he taught us to be as strict with the company we keep as we are with the food we eat. You wouldn't put poison on your plate, so why allow it into your life? The tireless chatterbox steals your time. The false sage distorts your vision. The disguised, envious person undermines your self-esteem. The bitter critic sabotages your confidence. The inflexible, proud person blocks your growth. The chronic dramatizer drowns your peace. The smiling flatterer feeds your vanity, and the professional victim drains your energy. Walk away, free yourself, and in place of these harmful voices, draw closer to those who lift you up, challenge you with respect, and walk alongside you with truth. As Montaigne would say, to live is to prepare to die well, and surrounding yourself with the right people is an essential part of that preparation. Choose wisely. Only for the determined people who stayed until the end of this video, comment below, "I stayed until the end." That way I'll know who really wants to take control of their life once and for all. Take care and see you in the next video.